Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, and today we're going to talk about UFC 299. Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, the rematch. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Casilla Center in Miami, Florida. You got the undisputed bantamweight champ, the savior of the bantamweight division, Sean O'Malley, rematching Marlon Chito Vera, the man with the most finishes in bantamweight history. And man, this card is absolutely stacked. The co-main event, we got Dustin Poirier, future Hall of Famer, one of the all-time leaders in knockouts, taking on the uprising, the scary Benoit Saint Denise. We got the debut of Michael Venum Page taking on the always dangerous Kevin Holland. And I mean, it doesn't end there. Jack Della versus Gilbert Burns, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. My friends, let's get right down to business, because in the main event, we got the champ, Sean O'Malley. He's 17-1, taking on Marlon Chito Vera, who's 23-8. And currently, they got it. Sugar Sean O'Malley minus 280. The comeback on Marlon Chito Vera is plus 240. So hell of a main event. And it's a rematch, as you guys know. So the first time they fought, it seemed like Sean O'Malley was kind of piecing up Chito a bit, which if you've ever watched a Chito Vera fight, you know that Chito Vera fights don't truly start until round 3. But in this case, you know, he kicked O'Malley right in the peroneal nerve and it deadened the nerve. And then O'Malley starts rolling over his ankles and eventually lost his footing completely. A couple subsequent ground and pound elbows, and the fight was stopped. First round TKO for Vera. Since that point, look what both these guys have accomplished. Let's just pull it up. So for Sugar, I mean, he's gone on his championship run since that point, literally. I mean, this guy went out there, had an incredible fight with Petr Yan. Despite who you scored it for, that was a hell of a fight, and it was good to see Sean O'Malley truly get tested in that fight. And one thing I want to say, even if you scored that Petr Yan fight for Petr, what I took away from it was that Sean O'Malley is a 5-round fighter. Reason being is that it really seemed like towards the 3rd round, he started to pick things up. And had there been championship rounds, a 4th and a 5th, it seemed like it was trending towards Sean O'Malley's direction. So that actually gave me confidence that he's a 5-round fighter. And then the fight with Aljo, I mean, thank God for Sugar for saving the bantamweight division. No disrespect to Aljo. I mean, what he's accomplished, I cannot take away from him. But being a hardcore fan of the sport, as long as we've been, guys, we can't have champs that, you know, win the belt via DQ and put on acting jobs and then are hanging on for dear life in the championship rounds like he was against Petr the second time, like he was against Henry Cejudo. So it's good to have, you know, exciting champs and exciting fighters back in the bantamweight division at the very top. And that's exactly what we got here, because like I said, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he's got a very interesting striking style. He's about 5'10", 5'11", so that's a very tall bantamweight, and uses his range very well. He switches stances, and he's got a nasty pull counter game. I mean, a lot of people are going to fall victim to that straight right hand. Just ask Aljo about it, but he's not the only one. There's been a lot of guys along the way. Man, I keep going back to that fight with Peter, because what's interesting about that fight, so for the positives, it gave me hope that, hey, like Sean O'Malley can potentially be a good 5-round fighter. But there were certain moments in that second round of the Peter fight, go pull it up, where it seemed like Sean O'Malley visibly fatigued. And in a spot like that, Chito is the kind of guy where he's so durable. He'll take that ass whooping up front. And if he's still there and he feels like you start to slow down even a little bit, like you give a guy like Chito an inch and he will take a mile. So in that second round of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, it seemed like Sugar started slowing down a bit. And you do that against Chito, I'm telling you, he's going to turn up on you. But what I loved about Sugar in that fight against Petr was he really got a second win in that 3rd round. And that's where he had his highest output of the entire fight. So it was very, very interesting. Now, another thing with Chito, we talk about his incredible durability, which is, I mean, you have to. I mean, this is a guy that stood in the pocket with John Lineker and ate his bombs, which, I mean, y'all that know who John Lineker is, know that one does not simply do that. Like, this guy's chin is insane. Like, Jose Aldo wanted to take down Chito Vera in that third round, did not want to stand with him. Like, even Song Yadong in that third round against Chito Vera started to break a little bit, because it's like, you hit this guy with a baseball bat and he's still walking forward. It's like, what do I got to do to kill this guy? It's like you step on the cockroach and it's still alive. So Chito's one of those guys, like I've said this for a very long time. It's going to be a very sad day when Marlon Chito Vera finally gets knocked out. And I'm not saying it's going to be this weekend. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, I know for a fact that Suga's goal here is to be the first man to not just knock out Chito, but to finish Chito. I mean, Chito Vera is a guy that, how many pro fights has he had? He's had over 30 pro fights and he's never been finished one time. Like, that is a feat right there. Like, this guy, it's just, he's built different. And you look at that Pedro Munhoz fight, right? And again, back to the 5-round talk, because we talked about it with O'Malley getting that second win in the Piotr Jan fight, but I want to talk about Chito Vera versus Pedro Munhoz, because a lot of people acted like it was this robbery. No, it was not, guys. First of all, let me say this. When Pedro Munhoz gets robbed, Pedro Munhoz is vocal. Go see his fight against Frankie Edgar, okay? But at the end of the Chito Vera fight, like in that third round especially, Pedro was getting marked up, man. And had there been 2 more rounds, I think it would have gotten really bad for Pedro. Potentially, Chito could have been the first man to finish him, but that's neither here nor there. And there was zero protest about that decision from Pedro, because Pedro knew what was up. I mean, the first 2 rounds were close, but that third round, Chito really took over. And had there been 2 more rounds, like I said, it would have got ugly, man. So here's my thing. Like, about a year or 2 ago, I think maybe a year ago, I always do like my year-end show and then, my boldest predictions and stuff. And I thought that Chito Vera was going to fight for a title, let alone win one, right? Had that Corey Sandhagen fight never happened, I'd be running to the betting window right now to bet Chito Vera. Now, how much stock should I put into the Corey Sandhagen fight? Because on one hand, it was a terrible look. I mean, the fact that like he got shut down in a way where it was like, wow, this guy doesn't belong anywhere near the title picture. Was it just the case of that was just a bad stylistic matchup? That was just an off night? But let me say something else, right? Because I bet Marlon Chito Vera in that fight. I think I bet him plus 160 or something like that. And it was a split decision. Now, don't ask me how Corey Sandhagen versus Chito Vera was a split decision, because I don't know. But then again, I'm not a judge, right? And you guys got to understand that when you're betting on these fights, you're not just betting on and against the fighters. You're betting on and against the judges. So if you give me plus 160 odds on a split decision, I'm going to make that bet all day, even if I score that fight personally 50-45 Corey Sandhagen. So it's just crazy. It's like our opinions of scoring don't even matter. It's about what these incompetent judges think. Because like me with someone who had a bet on Chito in that fight, like plus 160, and I score a 50-45 Corey Sandhagen, and then I hear a 48-47 Chito, a 49-46 Sandhagen. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, only one judge scored that fight correctly. The correct score was 50-45 Sandhagen. So with these judges, you never know. But back to my point, I think that this is one of those fights where, I said it before, Marlon Chito Vera fights don't really usually start until round 3. And the thing about this is, like, if you're hitting a heavy bag, dude, at some point you're going to get tired from hitting that heavy bag. And Marlon is like a heavy bag. You beat on this guy and then he's still there. You're fatigued from beating on him and then he finishes you. I mean, there's a reason Marlon Chito Vera has the most finishes in bantamweight history. When he starts getting in the clinch, starts getting dirty with those knees, those elbows, he's got a nasty trip takedown. His ground and pound is on point. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, Marlon gets mean. I just need Marlon to tap into that mean side, which he's known for. Like I said, if that Corey Sandhagen fight never happened, I would be all over Marlon Chito Vera here. But that was like a big red flag to me. And then with Suga, there have been questions about his durability. You watch that Sukumtut fight where he kicks Sukumtut in the head and then he falls back and like rolls his ankle or whatever. We still won that fight. I bet on like Suga at like plus 100 there, something pretty crazy, right? Also, obviously the fight where he got injured against Chito, that's one as well. And then there's been other fights where he's came in injured. So yeah, there's questions about his durability and, but it just comes down to the same thing for me. Like, is Sean O'Malley going to gas out from whooping on Chito or not? Like, here's what we know. I know for a fact that Sean O'Malley is going to light up Chito. That much we can all agree on. The question is he going to light up Chito and win the fight, or is he going to light up Chito, gas out, and get finished? That's the big question. And I cannot wait to find out. I'm leaning towards Sean O'Malley. But from a betting perspective, right now, plus 240, plus 250. I mean, listen, man, like I said, if Chito can take this ass whooping up front, make it a dirty fight, like, who knows? Because at some point, Sugar is going to have to catch that second win. Like, this dude, Chris Moutinho, almost made it to a decision with him. Again, that second round against Jan, Sugar was huffing and puffing, man. You huff and puff against Chito, he will step on that pedal and put it on you. So that's what I'm worried about for Sugar. But I know for a fact Sugar is going to light him up early. Will he light him up late as well? That's the big question. So I'm really not sure. As a pure pick, I'm going to go with Sugar to defend his belt. And then I heard something from Aljo's podcast talking about how Marlon didn't have the best camp and this and that. I wouldn't put much stock into it. Reason being is this: Marlon is one of these guys that, allegedly runs like 13 miles every day, and he's super locked in. He's on top of his nutrition. He doesn't really fuck off too much. So just because, I think his coach, Jason Pereira, who's responsible for UFC Hall of Famers, Bisping, BJ Penn, Cyborg, et cetera, like, I think, his gym, Ruka, closed down. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I mean, Chito's a very hard worker. So I'm not putting any stock into that. To me, the only stock I'm putting into is O'Malley going to whoop his ass, for 5 straight, or is O'Malley going to whoop his ass, gas out, and get finished? That's all it comes down to me. I'm going to pick Sugar, but from a betting perspective, it's a dog or pass situation. Now, co-main event of the evening. We got a 5-round co-main event in the lightweight division between one of the violence kings, the future Hall of Famer, the former interim lightweight champion, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. He's 29-8, taking on Benoit Saint Denise, who's 13-1. And currently, they got it. Benoit Saint Denise, minus 210. The comeback on Dustin Poirier is plus 180. Interesting, because you give me these odds on Dustin against almost anyone at lightweight, and it's almost like a no-brainer. The thing is that, when your favorite fighters are coming off KO losses, not just KO losses, but head kick KO losses, it's really hard to have a lot of confidence in where they're at mentally. Like, I know for a fact that Dustin Poirier is better than this guy. Dustin Poirier, dude, the Dustin Poirier blitz, when he hurts guys, I mean, he's got some of the best finishing instinct in the entire sport. He truly creates beautiful violence when he swarms guys. And you look at a guy like Dustin Poirier's resume, and who has he not fought, man? And people talk about, Dustin Poirier doesn't fight grapplers. Really? Khabib Nurmagomedov's not a grappler? Charles Oliveira's not a grappler? Michael Chandler's not a grappler? Like Carlos Diego Ferreira's not a grappler? Like, shut your fucking mouth. Now, does he beat every grappler he fights? No. But to say he doesn't fight grapplers, like what, Khabib's not a grappler? Charles isn't a grappler? Change your argument to he doesn't necessarily beat the best grapplers in the world. But to say he doesn't fight them, like, are you stupid? I just named you some of the grapplers he's fought. Now let's talk about some of the other guys he's fought. He's fought Eddie Alvarez twice, Justin Gaethje twice, beat Max Holloway twice, only man in MMA and UFC history to finish the great Max Holloway. Fought McGregor twice. I mean, knocked out Bobby Green all the way back in 2016. Like, this dude has been doing his thing for a long time. And he doesn't hold the record for the most knockouts in lightweight history. That actually goes to Mr. Drew Dober. But Dustin Poirier actually has more knockouts than Dober, because Dustin actually started his UFC career at 145 pounds. And he's got a lot of finishes there. He actually had a lot more submissions at 145 pounds. Really nice Darces, really nice Anacondas. His guillotine's on point too. But at lightweight, he's mostly been knocking people out. And with Benoit Saint Denise, man, what can I say? This guy's an absolute force. This guy's a tank. And when I say he's a force, that's not hyperbole. This guy was a special forces, like commander or something like that. Like, this guy's been through real wars, man. And then in his debut at 170 pounds against Eliseo Zaleski Capoeira dos Santos, and I bet on Zaleski there, that was one of the biggest beatdowns I've ever seen, and it probably should have been stopped, but I got to give Benoit Saint Denise so much credit for that. The kind of heart this guy showed, the kind of durability, the will to win. this is one of those guys that's willing to take chances and risks and cause violence and get hurt to get his desired outcome. That's how hungry this guy is. And also, we can talk about his toughness, his durability, and all that. From a technical standpoint, dude, Benoit Saint Denise has one of the nastiest butterfly games I've seen in the lightweight division from bottom. When he gets on bottom and he starts getting those butterfly hooks in, I mean, look at that Thiago Moises fight. Swept him, swept Matt Frivola. Like, dude, this guy is nasty on the ground. Now, on the feet, what he's mostly known for is he's got a really good body kick, a really hard body kick, and he will go for it with the hands. His hands are not anywhere near as sharp as Poirier's. And then in the clinch, Benoit Saint Denise has some nasty elbows, and he'll get dirty in there. I remember that fight with Thiago Moises, and Paul Felder was like, oh, they're turning it into a Muay Thai fight now because they're getting off on these big elbows. Like, here's my thing. If this is like some kind of pocket brawl, Poirier is going to knock this dude out. But this guy starts getting a couple takedowns going. I'm not saying he's going to submit Poirier right away. I think Poirier can hang on, can get back up. But what I'm worried about for Poirier is down the stretch, if this guy kind of drags him, and just keeps grinding on him, keeps diminishing that gas tank, eventually gets his arms around that neck. That's what I'm worried about here. Because, I was talking to my boy James Vick about this, and shout out to my boy Vic, former top 10 UFC lightweight. Now he's a coach. He just coached Victor Altamirano, who I thought won his fight against Felipe dos Santos. But a long time ago, Vic told me this. He told me, sometimes it's not about the skill of the man. Sometimes it's about the will of the man. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that Dustin Poirier is the more skilled guy here. The question is, and I'm not trying to question Dustin Poirier's will, because I know that this guy's been like one of my favorite fighters since I was a fucking kid, bro. Since UFC 125, when I saw him face Josh Grisby and he just beat the shit out of him. But I just feel like right now Benoit Saint Denise is the hungrier guy. And it hurts my feelings to say that, because I love Dustin Poirier, man. How can you not? Like, everyone that shits on him now is just, let's be honest, no old school fans shit on Dustin Poirier. Only these new school fans that came around the Conor McGregor era do, because they were just introduced, oh, P-head, this and that. But they need to show some respect to one of the violence gods, Dustin Poirier, man. And then they give him shit about how he acted in the Hooker fight. Like, dude, like, do you have any competitive bone in your body? Have you ever played a sport before in your life? Like, let's put some context on that. Hooker gets on the mic after the Ally Akinta fight, and he says, Dustin Poirier, like, I'm going to smash your face in. I'm going to end you. And then after Poirier beats his ass, Poirier walks up to Danny. He's like, hey, don't count your chickens, man. You're going to smash me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up now, bro? And then everyone's like, oh, Dustin's so classless. I'm going to fucking cry. I need a tissue. Like, dude, calm the fuck down. Talk shit and then get your ass whooped. Be ready for some clapback. That's just the bottom line. Like I said, if you've played sports before and you're crying about that, I'm not going to call you names because people I respect are crying about it. But like, come on, dog. If you've played sports before, like, let boys be boys, please. Like, when the adrenaline's rushing and you've just been through a 5-round war, like, yeah, like, there's a competitive bone in your body. You're going to talk a little shit. You're going to be amped up. It is what it is. Like, this ain't about being a classy winner or loser. They always shake hands, but it's okay to be competitive. It's okay to talk a little shit, guys. Like, we're men at the end of the day. So please don't try to, kind of like extinguish that. It just really bothers me how the hardest, most brutal sport has the softest fans. But back to this, man. To me, it comes down to, because like, you watch that Poirier versus Gaethje fight, the second one, right? Because the first time they fought, Poirier knocked him out. The second time they fought, Gaethje knocked him out. But up until the knockout, it was a very competitive fight, and it was so much more high level than like some of these exchanges Benoit's. And like, dude, this is not Thiago Moises or Matt Frivola anymore. Now you're entering the elite of the elite. And I know that Dustin, look, it hurts my feelings to say this. He's probably never going to win another UFC belt again, and this and that. And, Benoit's on the way up, but there's still something to be accounted for, the skills. And on the feet, I really do think that Poirier can rock Benoit Saint Denise, can knock him down, can hurt him, can possibly knock him out. It's just, if Benoit can survive this and Benoit can make this a grindy kind of fight, that's where I'm worried. So this is a really tough one for me to call, because it's the massive step up in competition for Benoit, like insane step up in competition, dude. like I said, this ain't no Thiago Moises or Matt Frivola anymore, my man. But for Poirier, it's just hard for me to have confidence in my favorite fighters when they're getting up there in age. They're coming off a head kick knockout loss. Like I faded Volkanovski coming off a head kick knockout loss. But let me preface that by saying I like to Poirier regardless of Islam knocking out Alexander or not. So I had already been set in my mind that I was going to bet Poirier in that fight. Now, Alex getting knocked out by the head kick didn't hurt my initial read, but it also wasn't like, oh yeah, now I'm definitely betting him. It was just like I was going to bet him no matter what. Whereas here, had that head kick knockout never happened, I'd 100% be betting Poirier here at these odds. It's just I'm not sure what he's got left in the tank, and I guess that's baked into the line a little bit. But man, if Poirier is a glimpse of that STF song, if he's half the man he used to be, I think he's going to knock this French man out. And all respect to Benoit Saint Denise, because the guy's a terror, the guy's a killer. And if he's ready to take this big step up in competition and surpass the great Dustin Poirier, the future Hall of Famer, and win this fight, hey, dog, you're right up there with the Chookagians, the Gamrots, the Islam Makhachevs, the Charles do Bronxes, and I'd love to see it. And one little thing, let me say this. So you remember that fight between Dustin and Charles, right? So Dustin drops Charles, but I talked about this often. The reason I bet on Islam against Charles was because when Dustin and Justin dropped Charles, they didn't want to go into his guard. They told him, hey, get back up, man. And that gives Charles a chance to recover. Whereas a guy like Islam, when he dropped Charles, he jumped right into his guard with no fear in the world. So here I'm thinking, like, if Dustin drops Benoit, I know Benoit's got that nasty butterfly game, but I have a feeling Dustin's not going to respect Benoit off his back as much as he respected Charles. And I think if he does drop him, he can go in there and follow up and possibly finish the deal. So yeah, this is a very, very tough one for me to call just because of where they're at in their respective careers. But if this comes down to skill, I think it's going to be Poirier. If it comes down to will, not that Poirier, like I said, not that Poirier ain't a guy to dig deep. He absolutely is. It's just at this point in his career, can he still go to the reserves like he used to back in the day? That's what I'm most concerned about. I'm still going to go with Poirier, he follows me on Twitter. I don't want to, nah, it ain't about that. It's he's just so much more skilled. It's just, what does he have left in the tank? Yeah, I can go back. I can go on and repeat myself about this and that. And it's just, it's a tough one for me to call. I'm going to lean with Poirier. Featured bout in the welterweight division. We got Kevin Holland. He's 25-10, taking on Michael Venum Page, MVP, who's 21-2. Currently, they got it. Kevin Holland -130. The comeback on the MVP is +110. Hell of a fight. I love this fight. So it's the UFC debut of MVP. For y'all that aren't familiar with him, he did his thing in Bellator. He's got a 20-2 record, as I just mentioned, and 21-2, excuse me. And this is a guy who, comes from that karate background. He's got a very unorthodox striking style, really good distance. The hole in his game is people have been able to take him down in the past, but like he's gotten better about that. Not like Mr. Holland is exactly a D1 wrestler either. He's had his fair share of problems on the mat too. And basically I see this being a 3-round striking fight, or until someone hits the deck from a knockout, man. The thing about Holland, as a fan, you got to love Holland because he's very entertaining. He talks a lot. I love guys that talk. I love shit talk. It's very exciting. He's got a lot of ridiculous finishes, like when he knocked that Jacare off his back. And he's just a long, lanky guy who's very awkward. He's got a nasty 1-2. When he throws that straight down the pipe, I mean, tons of dudes tend to get rocked by it. The thing with MVP is his distance is very, very different than almost anything that Holland's ever experienced. I'm not going to compare him to Wonder Boy, but I would say that Wonder Boy is the most similar style that Holland's faced to this. And I hear people talking about, oh, all Kevin Holland has to do is take this guy down. Okay, well, that's a nice thought. Remind me the last time Kevin Holland took anyone down. Actually, as a matter of fact, let's talk about that. So Kevin Holland taking someone down. Firstly, according to the stats, and this is in like a near 20 UFC fight sample size, the guy averages less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes. The last person he took down, let's see. The last time he took someone down, you got to go all the way back to his Derek Brunson fight, where Derek Brunson put a clinic on him. And then in that 5th round, he hit a takedown on Brunson. He's like, hey, DC, look. That shit was hilarious. Besides that, He took down Charlie Ontiveros twice. And then prior to that, I mean, this guy is not a takedown artist. This guy is a guy who he doesn't want people to take him down. So people saying that all Kevin Holland has to do is wrestle him. What wrestling? This guy is not a wrestler. This guy can't wrestle. So it's going to be a stand-up fight. And also, let me say this. MVP's wrestling has gone a lot better. Look, it's not obviously like the guys at the top of this division, but like 2 fights ago, he went to a split decision with Logan Storley, who's like a D1, like either national champ or All-American. And yeah, he did get held down for prolonged periods, but like he minimized the damage. He was able to get back up at times. Like I think he's improved in that aspect. And also, I don't think Kevin Holland is a threat there whatsoever. Where I think that Kevin Holland is a threat is on the feet. Kevin Holland is very long. He's very awkward. He's got a lot of sneaky power. So that's where you got to be worried. And MVP has been knocked out before, but granted, you got to put some context into it. He got knocked out by Douglas Lima, and it was a very kind of awkward knockout where Douglas Lima, who's one of the hardest leg kickers in welterweight history, he chopped him down with a calf kick. And as MVP was getting up, he just got caught with a big shot. Hey, man, credit to Douglas Lima on that one. But they rematched. MVP won the fight. Now, a lot of people say it was a robbery. Listen, man, back to the talk about the judges. I don't give a shit if you thought it was a robbery or if I thought it was a robbery. The bottom line is, if I'm betting dog odds on someone and you get me to a split decision, I made the right bet. And I took MVP here at plus 115. I put 2 units on it. Hey, if you're telling me it's going to be a low output striking match that goes to a split decision, then I made the right bet betting MVP here. There's no wrestling threat whatsoever by Kevin Holland. I mean, Kevin Holland, usually when he submits guys, he rocks them first. They take a sloppy shot. Then he'll snatch up a guillotine, a Darce, whatever the case may be. But when you talk about wrestling, it's usually Holland is the one that's getting taken down. So I'm not worried about Holland coming out here and wrestling. Also, Holland's IQ, it's funny because you hear him talk like in interviews, and he's actually a very intelligent guy. But in the cage, he ain't the brightest, man. He makes a lot of bonehead mistakes. Against Wonderboy, like letting him back up. And let's not even talk about the Wonderboy fight, because I know tons of people are going to reference the Wonderboy fight. I don't got to reference that. Y'all can reference that. Let me reference his fight against Darren Stewart, where I lay chalk on Kevin Holland. He's got an opponent in Darren Stewart who's completely outmatched. And that fight goes to a split decision in round 3. This dude, Darren Stewart, is on top of us. I'm like the mom from Home Alone. I was like, Kevin! Like, dude, like, oh my God, Kevin, like, don't make me sweat like that, bro. So Kevin Holland, like, and also that last fight against Jack Della, I bet Jack Della too. And guys, how the hell was that a split? I understand that I bet Jack Della, so you can say, oh, you're biased. Guys, y'all that have been following me for a long time know for a fact that I'll tweet 2 minutes into a fight that I bet on minus 2 units on this guy if I think the fight's not going my way and I think that I lost. I am never one to cry robbery. Like I said, y'all will see me tweet out minus X amount of units on this guy mid-fight before the fight's even over if I feel like it's not going my way. So when this shit went to split, I was like, what? And there's all these spots in that fight against Della Madalenna. It's a 3-round stand-up fight, right? Kevin Holland's got like an 8 to 10 inch reach advantage, and Holland's like getting out of position so badly to where like he's turning his back to Madalenna. Madalenna's like kicking him in the ass and all. It's like, dude, like I think that Holland's got a lot of natural gifts, but technically speaking, I think that MVP's got him covered, man. And I think that MVP is going to frustrate him a lot. I think there's going to be shots from angles that Kevin doesn't see coming. I think the speed is going to be something also that Kevin's like, oh shit, I don't think I've ever been in there with someone like this before. And if Kevin tries to wrestle, I don't think that his shots are anything special. This guy doesn't have a wrestling background. Like I said, his grappling is usually predicated on him rocking you. You shoot a sloppy shot on him. So, hey, if he can rock MVP, credit. I'll take my L like a man. But like I said, if MVP wants to make this a low output kickboxing match and you get me to a split decision, I made the right bet. We knock out Kevin Holland, I made the right bet. The only way I don't make the right bet here is if MVP gets just obliterated, which, hey, it's a fight. It could happen, but I do not see that happening. I think MVP is the side here. I bet him at dog odds. May the best man win. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Gilbert Durinho Burns. He's 22-6, taking on Jack Della Madalenna, who's 16-2. Currently, they got it. Jack Della minus 180. The comeback on Gilbert Durinho is plus 150. So I took Jack here. I took him at minus 135 a few days ago. And listen, all respect to Durinho. I mean, Durinho, like, This guy's a former lightweight, moved up to welterweight, got all the way to a title shot. Has had some big moments along the way, some big finishes, nasty jiu-jitsu. Like Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu is so disgusting, and that's what we got to be worried about here with Jack. I mean, if Gilbert can get on top of Jack Jack better like, let's hold on for dear life, not do anything stupid, not panic. Let's just wait till the next round, please. You know what I mean? Because Gilbert on top of us early while he's fresh, I'm probably gonna lose that bet. But let me say something, man. I think Jack Della has underrated takedown defense. Hear me out. Watch that fight with Basil Hafez, right? Because that's the one that people are going to reference. So I just talked about in my Holland breakdown how I thought it was total bullshit that the Holland versus Madalenna fight was a split decision. That was, how the fuck was that split? I thought that was clear, Jack. The Basil Hafez fight, however, now that one I can kind of understand a little bit, but let's talk about that. So that was a short notice replacement, right? He comes in there like on a week notice. Basil Hafez is he's a fucking tank, man. The guy's cocked. And I think that Della got cocky. I think he wanted to submit a black belt. Like, if you look at those guillotine attempts, like, he was literally under the neck nicely with his arm. And, he goes to his back. And as soon as he did that, Hafez passed the guard. But the way the arm was under the neck, it seemed like, hey, like Della might be onto something here, but he wasn't able to control the body. And as a result, Hafez was able to pass guard. And I thought that Hafez won that first round. But that second and third round, every single time it was on the feet, Della was lighting him up in the way. Like, Della might literally have the best boxing in the welterweight division. Actually, I'm going to tweet something right now. What do y'all think? Who y'all got in a pure boxing match between Jack Della and Jake Paul? I'm curious. I'm going to tweet that right now. Who do y'all got in a pure boxing match between Jack Della and Jake Paul? I'm actually very, very curious because, like, for MMA standards, Jack Della can box for real. Like, you don't often talk about that. Like, oftentimes, like when I mention guys who box in MMA, I say he's got good boxing for MMA, right? Because, the gloves are different, the distance is different, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this is one of those guys that could actually, like, it could box for real. Like, I'm not saying you'd go beat Canelo. Like, don't misquote me. But, like, I think he could actually legitimately, like, he's one of the few that could actually go into boxing and maybe do decently if he dedicated his life to it. But back to this. So you watch that Belal Muhammad fight with Gilbert Durinho, right? And that's the big talking point is, oh my God, Gilbert blew out his shoulder in the first round when he went for that takedown, this and that. Dude, okay. Why do people give such selective facts? Why do people only tell one side of the story when it fits their narrative, but they don't give the other side? And let me explain what I mean. So y'all remember that I bet on Belal Muhammad. What was it? Like plus 120, plus 125. I don't remember the odds, but I bet on Belal in that fight. I think I put 3 units on it, right? And prior to the fight, everybody's messaging me this picture of Belal with a swollen ankle. Like, oh my God, Belal's got a foot injury. Belal's got 1 foot. Belal's ankle, his foot was a balloon, to quote McGregor, right? Like, that's what everybody was sending me before the fight. I didn't hedge out. I was like, fuck it. Let's ride, right? And the fight happens, and Belal puts a 5-round clinic on him with 1 foot. But all you ever hear about was, oh, Gilbert blew his shoulder out. Like, so we'll mention that Gilbert blew his shoulder out, but we won't mention, like, Gilbert blew his shoulder out from what Belal did to Gilbert. But Gilbert went for a bad shot. Belal stopped that shot, put all his weight on him, drove him down, and I think his knee might have hit the shoulder too. Belal messed him up. Belal also, let me say this. Hold on. We're going to talk about the jabs here in a sec. But before I do that, so after the fact, everybody's only talking about, oh, Gilbert injured his shoulder during the fight. But now everybody conveniently forgot that Belal went into the fight with 1 foot. Like, come on, guys. Like, be consistent, okay? All the people that were sending me those pictures of Belal before the fact, now after the fact, they're crying about Gilbert being injured. Therefore, it wasn't a fair fight. Dog, both guys were injured. Plus, how many people have you seen fight through injuries in the UFC and win? Brian Ortega the other day, so yeah, man. Or Vinicius Oliveira overcoming like near 10-8 rounds to get a knockout of the year. Like, dude, tons of guys overcome shitty spots in fights, and Gilbert was simply not able to do that. Now, let's bring something else up. Gilbert's been dropped by jabs multiple times against Kamaru Usman, against Hamza Chimaev, and against Belal as well. You know who's got a nasty jab? Jack Della Madalenna. I think Jack Della is going to pop this guy's head back. He's going to mix it up to the body. And Back to the Basel fight, right? Because that's the important reference point. When Jack actually tried to stuff the takedowns and not go for guillotines, his takedown defense was good. His get-up game was good. Like, he did everything properly. It's just sometimes when he got his arm under the neck, he got a little carried away. He thought he had something. As long as he doesn't do some shit like that here, or he's not just, eviscerated early with a blast double to an arm triangle or something like that. Because there have been situations where he was in a deep arm triangle against the dude he fought on Contenders, Angelusa. He was in a bit of an arm triangle situation against Hafez too. You saw him grimacing a little bit. So, like, don't get into those spots and you're going to win this fight. The volume is way too much. The accuracy is way too much. The durability, the confidence, the will to win, the hunger. It's just about, don't fuck around on the mat and we win this fight. So, yeah, I bet him at -135. Got the best of it. Well, the best of it in terms of, like, he's going to close what, -180 to whatever. I know there's people that got like what, -110 on Jack? Hey, y'all did great, man. But I usually only bet on things on fight week. Maybe I should start, betting before a little bit. It's just like when the limits go up, that's when I like to bet on the shit that's widely available with no low limits. So I got in -135, and we know exactly what we got to do here, Jack. We know where we want to be. We know where we don't want to be. So, all respect to Dorino, good calf kicks, big right hand, left hook, double leg, incredible jiu-jitsu, but Jack's boxing's on a different level. And if Jack is smart about how he defends these takedowns, he's going to put output on this guy. He's going to light this man up, and he might even knock him out. So I'm going to go Jack Della to win this fight, and I bet him in the spot. And let's see what people are saying about this. Hey, y'all let me know in the comments who you got between Jack Della and Jake Paul. I'm actually very curious. So right now, wow. So right now I only got like 55 votes on my poll. 75% say Jack Della beats Jake Paul in pure boxing. Interesting. Let's see any comments. Someone said, I don't know, is JDM a cab driver? And someone, Jake Paul is the Muhammad Ali of my generation. We are seeing greatness in real time, Dan. Y'all are hilarious. All right. Next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between the former bantamweight king Petr Yan, he's 16-5, taking on Song Yadong, who's 21-7. Currently, they got it. Petr Yan -115. The comeback on Song Yadong is -105. This is such a hell of a fight. So when this fight was first announced, my initial gut was to take Song Yadong at dog odds, but the tape talked me off of it. Now, guys, remember, the tape is not the be-all, end-all. Sometimes the tape will talk you off a good spot. Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, Lazy Boy Rodriguez against Dennis Bonder. I was like, oh my God, I get to fade Dennis Bonder at dog odds. Yeah, I'm all over this. Then I watched tape on Lazy Boy. He looked terrible and I passed, and then he ends up winning anyway. He gets taken down like 10 times and he wins regardless. Like, it's like Dennis Bonder does not win UFC fights, so you should just trust your gut there. But here, I was under the impression that Petr Yan's on his way out and this and that, but the reality is Piotr's not washed. Okay, let's put some context into this. Like, firstly, he's only 31 years old. Secondly, these fights he's been losing, the first Aljo fight, I mean, when you knock a grown man out with a knee and they call him the winner, like, come on, dog. Like, he won the first Aljo fight by knockout, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I don't care about rules or this or public opinion. I just care about man-to-man, mano-y-mano. Like, what really happened? What's the psychology between the two guys? They get into a fight, you knock a grown man out with a knee and they call him the winner. That does not make you a winner, okay? Like, come on. Next fight against Corey Sandhagen, I mean, dog, that was an incredible fight, but he fucking put it on Corey Sandhagen. He looked like his aura in that fight. He just looked like a champ in that fight. Then the Aljo rematch. I was at that fight. Very frustrating. Did Peter cover his -350 price tag? Absolutely not. But that second Aljo fight all comes down to how you score round one. Round 2 and 3 were obviously Aljo's. Round 4 and 5 were obviously Piotr's. Comes down to how you score round one. Live, I was there. I thought Petr won round one. Apparently he didn't, so they gave it to Aljo. Yeah, but like, I just thank God for Sean O'Malley getting Aljo out of there. Like, I just can't stand having a champion who's hanging on for dear life in the championship rounds. Like, that's not what champs do, man. So thank you, Sean. And the funny thing is, like, if you watch Aljo's podcast, he actually seems like a cool dude. Like, he's very well spoken, seems like a chill ass dude, and I'll smoke a joint with him. But like, fighting wise, I just don't enjoy watching him fight at all. But it's funny. It's like entertainment versus reality are two completely different things. I'm going off on a tangent. So he loses that Aljo fight, and then he comes back against Sugar. That was a good ass fight against Sugar, man. That was a really fucking good fight. I watched it the other night. Like, dude, sometimes when I watch that fight, I think Sugar won. Sometimes when I watch that fight, I think Petr Yan won. Like, I think there's an argument for like a 30-27 Petr Yan. I think there's an argument for a 29-28 Sean O'Malley. Like, it's and speaking of 30-27s, because I forgot to mention this when I was talking about the Holland fight, right? The Jack Della versus Holland fight. I think that 30-27 Jack Della is a more appropriate scorecard than 29-28 Kevin Holland in that fight. But back to this, I digress. So Petr loses the Sugar fight, and he looks good in that fight. I mean, he's still like is not washed by any means. It was a really good fight. And also, Sugar is a very, very long striker with his reach and his range is just so deceptive. Song doesn't fight like that. Song is short. He's fucking stocky. I hear that this guy, so my boy Jamal Hill had Cody Stamen on his podcast, right? And Cody Stamen was talking about how he fought Song Yadong, right? And Cody Stamen was talking about how like he prides himself on being one of the bigger welterweights in the division. Sorry, welterweights. He prides himself on being one of the bigger bantamweights in the division, right? And they measure their rehydration weights, right? So they weigh in at 135 pounds, and then the next day they re-weigh in to see what they've rehydrated to, right? And Cody Stamen was like, man, I'm weighing in at 160. Like, I'm fucking cocked. I'm big. I'm ready. Apparently, Song Yadong, this was like half a decade ago, Song Yadong was weighing in 167 on fight day. And this is like when the dude was like 23 or some shit. Now he's like 26. Like, dude's like 170, 175 on fight day. He is a massive bantamweight. Like Jamal was talking about how like the dude's he's talking about the PI and the dude's legs are like tree trunks. Cody Stamen couldn't believe it. Like, this is a big boy. And the thing about Song Yadong in the pocket, you bang in the pocket with Song, I mean, there's a chance you're hitting the deck, dog. Like, watch that fight he had with Chris Gutierrez. People try to diminish Song's performance. No, do not be that guy. Let me tell you why. When you're fighting against an opponent like Chris, who's just running away the entire time, I mean, and you're a pocket boxer, you know, it's going to make for a bad fight. But the thing about it is, Petr Yan's not going to run away from Song Yadong. And Song Yadong is not going to run away from Petr Yan. So these two, it's going to be some bulls colliding. I cannot wait. So I think in the pocket, the heavier hitter and the stronger guy is Song, but the slicker, more experienced, more technical, and faster guy is Petr Yan. So that makes it interesting. So I was talking about how Petr lost those fights to Sugar and Aljo, which could have gone his way. And then the Merab fight, now that 100% could have not gone his way. That, you know what Petr did? Petr set a record, though. Petr set a record for most takedowns defended in UFC history in that fight, despite getting fucking dominated. But listen, Merab's going to do that to a lot of guys. So I think Merab would probably do that to Song too. So I'm not going to put too much stock in it. The only stock or whatever, the only questions to ask about that is, where's your confidence at coming off all these losses? That's the thing to ask. Like, do you still believe you can get back to the belt? Are you just trying to fight out your UFC contract? Because like, he's only 31 and he's looked good in most of these fights. So I'm not going to say that Petr is washed at all. Like, I still think he's got plenty left in the tank. And honestly, I think this is a good fight for him. It's just, you got to be careful in the pocket with Song. Song can fucking crack like no one's business. Like, this guy does not hit like a bantamweight. This guy, like, you put him in there with Phil Haas, who's like a middleweight, and I got Song Yadong by knockout. You know what I'm saying? So this young man can crack, dude. But minus the pocket, like, I don't think Song's going to be hitting takedowns on Yan. Yan might hit some takedowns on Song. Not that he'll necessarily hold him down, but I do think he can take him down. I mean, Yan took down Sean O'Malley, slammed and picked him up. Took down Aljo 7 times their first fight. Had some good grappling exchanges with Corey Sandhagen as well. I think that Petr can take him down. It's just these pocket exchanges is where it's going to get interesting, man. But I think that there's more diversity in the strikes of Yan. It's just Yan historically is known for kind of taking that first round off to make his reads, kind of Chito Vera style, download the data like they like to say. But I mean, he might come out here with a chip on his shoulder, and there might not be too much data to download because Song's not going to give you like all these ridiculous looks. Like, you know exactly what Song wants to do. He wants to box you in the pocket. He wants to set you up for something big, a big hook, a big overhand, a big uppercut. And if he does that, if he's the first man to drop or knock out Petr Yan, hey, dog, straight to the top you go, my boy. But I think if Peter's still hungry, still confident, still got something left in the tank, I think this is one where he could get back on track. So I'm actually going to go Petr Yan here to get back in the win column. But I expect this to be a very competitive, dynamic 3-round bantamweight war. All right, so that main card is so damn sick, and I appreciate y'all making it to this point in the podcast. Please hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Leave me a comment below, and if you feel so inclined to share, please do that. I truly appreciate it. Also, if anyone wants to sponsor the show, let me know. One of the ways it could work is I put your product right here. I have it with me the entire show. I talk it up as long as I like it for real, because I'm only going to endorse products I like. But if you want your product sitting here next to me for the entire show, hit me up. Let's talk. Now, featured prelim. We got Curtis Blaydes. He's 17-4, taking on Jailton Almeida, who's 20-2. Currently, they got it. It's a pick 'em with a slight lean on Blaydes. It's -115 Blaydes, -105 Jailton. This is a very interesting fight. And this is one I've kind of gone back and forth on, because it's like, Curtis has all the tools to win this fight. Like, if we can stuff this man's takedowns and turn this into a striking match, there's a really good chance. Like, use that wrestling in reverse. Like, Jailton, what he does is he throws this front kick to the face and then dives on legs. And boy, does he get deep on those legs. And let me just say this. If that front kick to the face lands on Blaydes' suspect chin, do not be surprised. Okay, do not be surprised if he hits the deck. But so the argument for Blaydes here, right, is that, hey, we use our wrestling in reverse. We keep this standing. We light this man up, right? Sounds pretty logical, to me at least, right? So I had to look up what happened when people have attempted takedowns on Blaydes, or when they've actually gotten takedowns on Blaydes. Like, what happened in those spots? And you got to really date back. You got to date back goddamn like 8 to 10 years when that happened. And it actually happened against this dude, Cody East, who's a piece of shit. Look up that motherfucker. Fuck that guy. I was in attendance when Walt Harris knocked out Cody East. Shout out Walt for that. That was beautiful. But yeah, so you got to date back 8 to 10 years to the last time that Curtis Blaydes was like taken down in a fight, right? Now, he was taken down 3 times by Cody East. But Daniel, why are you bringing up shit that happened 8 to 10 years ago? Very, very good question, my friend. Actually, a fantastic question. And you should ask me that. Here's why. Reason being is this. 8 to 10 years ago, Curtis Blaydes was more recently removed to his college wrestling days than he is now. So one could actually make the argument that Curtis Blaydes was a better wrestler back then than he is now. I'm just saying. I mean, 8 years ago, he was closer to his college wrestling days than he is now. Just saying. So, look, I'm not saying he hasn't been training his wrestling. I'm not saying that, he's not sharp or this or that. But what I am saying, he was at the peak of his wrestling game during that Cody East fight, and he got taken down 3 times. Now, eventually, gets on top of the guy and pounds him out. And let me tell y'all something. Curtis Blaydes' ground and pound is so disgusting. Y'all remember that fight with Overeem, those elbows? Oh my God, he busted his face up in a way. And even in that fight, like, he escaped some submission attempts, escaped a guillotine, escaped a heel hook. So we've seen some glimpses here and there. Man, when Volkov took him down, he didn't get back up. But granted, there were 10 seconds left in the round, and he had put on a wrestling clinic on Volkov up until that point. So maybe he felt like no urgency to get back up because there was only 10 seconds left and he was up on the scorecards. But if Volkov can take you down, Jailton Almeida can take you down. And the thing about Jailton, people criticize him for his Black Beast fight, for not finishing or whatnot. Okay, fair enough. But I mean, still 50-45, a top 10 guy. And let me say this, if you're going to criticize Jailton for his Black Beast fight, y'all want to maybe keep that same energy and criticize Curtis Blaydes for his Black Beast fight, when like you literally know the game plan to take this man down, you want to bang with him, and then when you finally decide to shoot a takedown, you get knocked out, kind of like in your Pavlovich fight, where like we've seen the one time up until then, this was prior to the Aspinall fight, when Pavlovich had lost in the UFC, when he got taken down against Alistair Overeem, couldn't get back up, was like, life alert, help, I've fallen and can't get up, And what does Curtis Blaydes do? I'm gonna stand and bang with Sergey Pavlovich, who's like the second or third hardest hitter in heavyweight history. And once I'm rocked, then I'm gonna shoot. Like Curtis Blaydes might literally be one of the dumbest fighters I've ever seen in my life. Like I'm not talking about outside the cage. I don't know the guy. Maybe he's intelligent, but I'm talking about fight IQ inside the octagon. The guy is like, I want to use words I'm not allowed to use. He ain't the brightest. And I could totally see a situation where, what he should do here is use his wrestling in reverse, keep this fight standing. Let's light this man up. I could totally see him. Just like you wanted to test your stand-up against Ngannou, you wanted to test your stand-up against Pavlovich, you wanted to test your stand-up against Derek Lewis. Now he probably wants to test his grappling against Jailton Almeida. And he's just that dumb. His decision-making is just that bad that you should not be surprised. He's got a path, but I just don't trust him to take it. And Jailton, one thing I know about him is, look, it might not look the prettiest, but at least you can rely on him to follow his strategy. And I think he is going to take Curtis Blaydes down. What happens from there, I'm not sure, whether he's able to hold him down or maybe Curtis Blaydes gets back up and then Jailton starts shooting from a mile away. Jailton starts gassing out. Jailton starts flopping to his back. Maybe Curtis Blaydes takes over, or maybe Jailton gets on top and submits him. You never know. So a lot of different ways this fight could play out. That's why I had to pick him. But I'm going to lean with Jailton Almeida just because I think he's more trustworthy. But I'm very aware about what could go wrong in this spot. And I'm not betting it unless I get dog odds. If I get dog odds, I'm considering it. Just because the more I've looked into it, the more I just think Blaydes is a complete dummy. But yeah, I'm going to go Jailton here. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a match between Maycee Barber. She's 13-2. She's taking on Katlyn Chookagian Sermonara, who's 18-5. Currently, they got it. Maycee Barber -200. The comeback on Katlyn Chookagian is +180. So, when Katlyn used to win these decisions, we'd say, people got chooked. Now we're going to say they got Sermonara, but we don't know what she fights like now. Did she get married or did she get divorced? I'm trying to figure it out, but we know exactly what Katlyn Chookagian does. She's like one of the pioneers of that air striking style. We're going to talk about Marina Moroz later on in the card, where she makes the tennis sounds and the judges think she's landing when she's not. And she's been able to get away with so many decisions that way. Look, she's got a good resume on her. And like Katlyn Chookagian's like an ultimate gatekeeper for that division. Like if you can get past her, it's probably bright skies, but she will also like set back a lot of prospects. With Maycee, she's had her fair share of moments where she's shadow boxed in the air too, and she's had some embarrassing moments here and there, the Roxanne fight, but you got to remember she was just a kid back then. Now she's a grown-ass woman, and I like what she's developing into. I know there's been some hiccups, like even that Andrea Lee fight. Dude, I was at an Unwritten Law concert for that, right? And it was the same night that Chito fought Corey. And it's at this place called the Earl in Atlanta, right? They got the concert hall, and then next to it, they got like a little bar and grill. So prior to the concert, I'm at the bar and grill, like eating like a burger, and I'm watching the fights on my phone, without commentary. I can't hear shit anyways. I'm half paying attention, but most of the fight, I'm seeing like Andrea Lee on top of her. And then I see Maycee get her arm raised. I was like, what? I was like, oh my God. But when I rewatch it, like Maycee did do more damage in that fight than Andrea, but she was just held down for prolonged periods of time. And you cannot let that happen here. Hey, credit to Maycee though. She did win a round against Alexa. She won that third round against Alexa. She fought tough there. There was also that, what's the name of the Pickles girl? Miranda Maverick. That was one. That was a controversial one as well too. But let me say this. Take the controversy away. When Maycee does her thing, man, like Maycee gets violent in there. Maycee has a lot of power for that division. When she can finally close the distance, she gets nasty. She gets violent. She got big elbows. She can mark up a lot of girls. So I see this being competitive. I see this being close. Yeah, I don't know. Could Maycee get choked here? Maybe. But I also think, Katlyn doesn't like those big power punches. You saw that Andrade fight. Andrade, obviously, one of the better knockout artists in women's history. Not saying Maycee's there, but hey, we've seen Katlyn fold before. Maybe Maycee can do something. But I'm not sure. I'm just really not sure. I'm not interested in this price. Yeah, I just no confidence, and I'm not gonna bullshit you guys and act confident if I'm not confident. But my pick is Maycee Barber. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Mateusz Gamrot. He's 23-2, taking on RDA Rafael Dos Anjos, 32-15. Currently, they got it. Mateusz Gamrot -450. The comeback on Rafael Dos Anjos is +355. Yeah, I got Gamrot here. It's just this price is terrible. If this price goes down a little bit, Gamrot should be I say should be a safe parlay leg. Why I say that now until he gets robbed by split or something, right? Or like loses a DQ. It's just the price sucks. I mean, like RDA, how can you not love RDA? One of the best pressure fighters of all time from the southpaw stance, nasty liver kick, black belt in jiu-jitsu, has been, former lightweight champion, dethroned Anthony Pettis back when Anthony was the man. Has had success at welterweight. Like I love me some RDA, but RDA is on his way out, man. I mean, that last fight against Luque was a massive red flag. Luque is a guy who was coming off a fucking brain hemorrhage, right? And I bet on RDA in that spot because of it. I was like, hey, let's just touch this man up. And RDA didn't even like punch him in the face. It became like a 5-round wrestling match. And when you're getting out wrestled by Vicente Luque, who Vicente Luque is the man. Vicente Luque, nasty left hook, nasty calf kicks, big time finisher. But Vicente Luque is not known for offensively wrestling anyone. What were the numbers on that fight? I'm going to tell you right now, my friends. When Vicente Luque is out there scoring 8 takedowns on you, 8 takedowns, Vicente Luque, what do you think is going to happen when you fight Mateusz Gamrot, who, how many takedowns did this man land against Arman Sarukian? This man went 6 for 21. Let's attempt 21 takedowns against RDA. We're going to win. Let's hit 6 takedowns against RDA. We're going to win. Like, Gamrot's just going to wrestle this guy. If Gamrot wants to stand with this guy, he can too. But I think Gamrot, if he just gets down to like, he's got one of the nastiest low single games in MMA, which is like in college wrestling, it's a popular takedown, but in MMA, it's a very rare thing. Go check out Randy Couture versus James Toney. That's a good example of that low single. But like Gamrot's got a nasty low single series. Then what gets on top, his submissions are on point. He's a nasty scrambler. I mean, I think he's going to wear out RDA and put a wrestling clinic on him. I just hope the price gets better because I'd like to get some action on it. Just not at minus 450, but give me a better price. And I'm in on Mateusz. Y'all let me know. What do you think is the best parlay leg besides Gamrot on this card? Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Pedro Munhoz. He's 20-8, taking on Kyler Phillips, who's 11-2. Currently, they got it Kyler Phillips minus 225. The comeback on Pedro Munhoz is plus 190. Hell of a fight. Kyler Phillips, man, super explosive, dynamic, especially in that first round. This guy's hell on wheels, big kicks, and he goes balls to the wall, okay? Like, he's going to have a big speed advantage here. He's going to have an explosiveness and a youth advantage here. My only issue is with that balls to the wall style. As you guys know, you're going to fatigue. Watch this fight with Raulian Paiva. He almost killed Paiva in round 1. And then round 2 and 3, he's huffing and puffing. This is even that third round against Barcelos, man. Like Kyler Phillips, like he just goes so fucking hard. I'm curious to see how he looks without USADA. There's a guy who was tested positive before. Now there's no USADA testing. I'm curious to see how he looks. And, maybe he comes in there, maybe he's been seeing Ludovic Klein's doctor. Like, oh my God, Ludovic Klein, the way he looks, dude. Like, hey, my birthday's in October. One of y'all hook me up with an appointment with Ludovic Klein's doctor. Pedro Munhoz, what can I say? Such a vet of the game, 37 years old at this point. And this is a guy who was one of the original calf kickers in the bantamweight division. Nasty guillotine, big knockout power, and durable as all hell. Like, he's a guy that was one of the original, like, and I mean this with all due respect, like kind of like an Ortega or a Chito, or it's like you're a walking punching bag, dudes gas out from whooping on you, and then you finish them. Like, Pedro was one of the original guys to do that style. In the lower weight classes. And Pedro's still competitive at times, there's been some red flags, like that fight he had against Jose Aldo, but I think that was just a situation where, Pedro probably had a poster of Jose Aldo on his wall when he was a kid, and that's the only time I've ever seen Pedro Munhoz ask, his opponent for a selfie and an autograph in the middle of the octagon in a fight. He's never acted like that before, but he does seem to be slowing down as fights progress, man. Like, for example, that Marlon Chito Vera fight, that third round, man, it got really ugly. And had there been 2 more rounds, like I said earlier, it might have been the first time he got finished. The Chris Gutierrez fight, first round drops Gutierrez, is looking amazing. Second and third, we're getting a lot closer. The Sean O'Malley fight, first round, game plan was going according to plan. Second round, it looked like Sean O'Malley was starting to pull away. The Cruz fight, you almost knock him out in round 1. Round 2 and 3, you lose. Even the Frankie Edgar fight, like I max bet Munhoz in that fight, and like even though I thought we won that fight, like sometimes towards the end of the fights, he just doesn't do enough like he used to. And that's the thing with Kyler too. Kyler doesn't do enough at the end of fights either. So I'm curious to see who's going to win the later rounds. Should it go there? I'm going to lean a little bit towards Kyler. Just not interested at this price. Because I could see it being competitive at times. But the reason I'm going to pick Kyler, the youth and the speed. Y'all know. I think Pedro's a bit on the hittable side, as you guys know, but he's ultra durable. It's just don't gas out from whooping this man's ass. That's a big problem, right? But I think Kyler probably gets it done. And next up in the middleweight division, this is a very good fight. We got Michel Pereira, he's 29-11, taking on Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's 19-6. Currently, they got it. Michel Pereira -145. The comeback on Michal Oleksiejczuk is +125. So on paper, it's a former 205er in Michal Oleksiejczuk coming down to 185, and a former welterweight in Michel Pereira going up to 185. But the funny thing about it is Michel Pereira is the bigger guy here. If anything, I could see Michel Pereira ending his career at 205, and I could see Oleksiejczuk dropping down to 70s. So Michel is going to be the bigger guy here, no questions asked. But as far as how they match up, this is what's interesting about it. So you got a guy in Michel Pereira who wants his space, who wants his distance to get off on his explosive strikes. And he's known for like doing a lot of acrobatic things like the backflips and, you know, the punches off the cage and this and that. What's up, my boy, Leo? Leo, you got an opinion on this Michal Oleksiejczuk fight, my boy? You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is, what I love about this matchup, hold on, Leo. Hey, give me a second, my boy. I promise I'll take you out. Even though I took you out and fed you right before this podcast. Hey, he's barking. Does that mean Michal Oleksiejczuk is live? But listen, what's interesting about the dynamic of this matchup is that Michel Pereira is going to want his space to get off on his explosive strikes, but Michal Oleksiejczuk is going to walk him down and is not going to give him the style he wants, is going to pressure him. But in doing that, you leave a lot of openings with that pressure style, especially to the body. You saw that last fight against Chidi Njokuani. Chidi was getting off on a lot of knees to the body, even wobbled him with a head kick. But the thing about it was that Chidi broke to the pressure. We've seen Michel Pereira at 70s. People will reference that Fialho fight or even like late in the Nico Price fight where he has fatigued in spots. Now, I'm wondering if that's just because of the style or if that's because the guy was cutting like ridiculous amounts of weight to make 70s. Because like you remember when he was supposed to fight Wonderboy, when Wonderboy famously, you know, turned down the fight just because the guy missed weight by 3 pounds. The guy was cutting insane amounts of weight to get to welterweight, whereas here at middleweight, he's still cutting a lot of weight, but this weight class, he's going to feel a lot better. There's going to be more water in his body and brain. He's going to perform at a higher level. Now, that debut at middleweight against Petrosky, the knockout was great, but that knockout blow was like the only shot he landed the entire fight. So while I do take something away from it, hey, Petrosky was on a streak. Petrosky was doing his thing, and you were the guy that went out there and finished him. You can't just rely on shots like that. And Michal isn't the guy to quit to strikes. Michal, if you get around his neck, he ain't the best, but like I haven't seen too many guys beat Michal in a striking match. Dustin Jacoby did, but that was a very close fight too. Like the first round, Michal won. The second and third, Dustin kind of took over there. But also Michal was massively outsized in that fight. So it was just one of those things. But here, it's the pressure of Michal, that forward pressure. This guy's going to mix in body shots. He's going to go over the top. He's going to walk you down without a care in the world. Michel Pereira has got to be the sniper here. He's got to make this guy pay. He also has to go to the body himself. He's got to mix in big kicks. He's got to make this guy be like, nah, like, you know. Oh, and another thing, Michel Pereira could possibly mix in some takedowns here. I'm curious if he pulls out that Uno card and mixes in some takedowns, because that's been a weakness in Michal Oleksiejczuk's game. Not just at 205. He also got choked out at 185. Granted, against a Damian Maia black belt, but still, that is a big weakness in his game. So this is a very tough one for me to call. I'm kind of like, I see the argument for both sides. I lean a bit towards Pereira with the physicality, with more ways to win. But if you tell me right now that the pressure of Michal Oleksiejczuk eventually gets to Michel Pereira, like I'm not gonna be surprised. I could legit see it go either way, but I'm gonna lean a little bit towards Michel Pereira with the physicality and with the more ways to win. Now, next up in the 205-pound division, we got a matchup between Philipe Lynch. He's 17-5, taking on Iwan Cutelaba, who's 17-9. Currently, they got it. Iwan Cutelaba -135. The comeback on Philipe Lynch is +115. This is a really tough fight to call. Last time they were supposed to fight, I bet on Philipe Lynch at dog odds, and then he pulls out on fight day. It's like, should I do it again? I don't know. It's because like the guy's like almost 40 years old. Cutelaba, he's been hit or miss, but he's still only 30. He's coming into his prime, and he's got a lot of upside. It's just he's got to get it together. Yeah, this is a really tough one. Should I go with Lins again because I picked him last time? But it's like this guy's pulling out on fight day multiple times, and I don't know. I'm gonna flip a coin. So heads for Lins, tails for Cutelaba. Tails. So we're gonna go with Cutelaba here. I'm gonna switch my pick. Cutelaba is very dangerous early on in fights. He also has a wrestling background, but he can swing bungalows. The area where Cutelaba's had issues is he goes so hard for the kill that sometimes he gasses out, and then you come back and you finish him. That's where he's had issues. And then with Philipe Lynch, he's been knocked out his fair share of times too. He looks like he's got a new doctor. And he had his new doctor under USADA testing. He's been looking amazing at 205. And now I'm curious to see if with no USADA, if it's just if this guy is just like, if we're looking at if he's been setting up appointments with Ludovic Klein's doctor. But yeah, I'm just not really sure. I could see it go either way. So I probably should take the dog, but I don't know. The coin said to take Cutelaba, so we'll go with him. But yeah, not much confidence. I really don't know. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got the debut of Robelis Despaigne. Robelis Despaigne? Is that how you say it? Because I know he's like Cuban, so like it's probably pronounced differently in Spanish. I doubt it's Despaigne in Spanish. So y'all let me know. How do you pronounce that name in Spanish? Robelis Despaigne? Robelis Despaigne? Like, how do you say it in Spanish? But anyways, he's 4-0. He's taking on Josh Parisian, who's 15-7. Currently, they got it. Robelis minus 325. The comeback on Josh Parisian is plus 250. So Robelis making his debut, Olympic medalist in Taekwondo. Now, when people talk about him being an Olympic medalist, I heard like some show talking about how he's an Olympic wrestler. Stop. Do not ever go there. He's an Olympic medalist in Taekwondo, which is still cool for a big ass dude like that. How big is this motherfucker? 6'7". He's got the longest reach in UFC history, 87 inches, longer than John Jones, longer than Stefan Struve. Like, goddamn, like this is a big boy. So he's obviously got a lot of dexterity with his legs, big power because of the Taekwondo background. But when you watch his fights, so his last 3 fights, he fought a 1-0 guy and it lasted 4 seconds. He fought an 0-0 guy. It lasted 3 seconds. He fought another 0-0 guy. It lasted 12 seconds. And then he fought another 0-0 guy, and it lasted slightly under 5 minutes. So credit to you. You got a 4-second knockout, a 3-second knockout, and a 12-second knockout. Like, obviously, I'm not going to, say that he's just going to come into the UFC and knock everybody out in 12 seconds and this and that. But, like, hey, respect, man. Like, you handled those cans how you're supposed to handle those cans. I love it. But the one fight that went past 10 seconds, like, in his debut, like the dude he was up against, some random can, who's 0-1 still to this day, was easily getting double underhooks on him, pinning him up against the fence. And like you saw Robelis making faces, start to gas out a little bit. But, when you're up against an 0-0 can, the guy didn't know what he was doing. One opportunity and Robelis knocked him out. The thing about it is Parisian, like we know where Parisian lies. Parisian is a bona fide bottom of the barrel heavyweight. Like he's an established low tier heavyweight. We know that. Whereas we don't know if Robelis, we don't know shit about Robelis, except that he's big and he's athletic and that absolute cans. Like guys with 0-0 records couldn't last 5 seconds with him. So, hey, respect. This is a good UFC debut opponent for Robelis because, this dude, Josh Parisian, like I said, he's the guy, like, when Dante Almeida is out there humping your face, you know what I'm saying? When Martin Boudet is out there kimoring you, like when Parker Porter is out there decisioning you, like, respect to Josh Parisian, but he's not going to be in the UFC this time next year. So this is a good opponent for Robelis. But like, hey, if Josh Parisian comes in here, just gets double underhooks, pins his man up against the fence, gets me past round 1, who the fuck knows, right? Like, seriously, like, who knows? But that said, Robelis is probably too athletic for this. I mean, I know he's too athletic for this guy. I just hope that because he's not seasoned at all. He's not like, dude, that first fight was so ugly, how easily that guy pinned him up against the fence with those underhooks, and he could not disengage at all. Josh Parisian's got the blueprint on how to beat this guy, but can he follow it? Probably not. So I'm going to go Robelis here via knockout. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between CJ Vergara. He's 12-4, taking on Asu Almabaev, who's 18-2. Currently, they got it. Asu Almabaev minus 475. The comeback on CJ Vergara is plus 375. So, man, if y'all heard my breakdown of Asu's debut against O'Day, I was not high on this guy at all because, like, prior to the UFC, you know, he's been in there with 3 UFC vets. So when you're watching tape on someone, you want a reference point. Like, how does he do against UFC competition? So his first UFC opponent, Tagir Ulanbekov, mopped the floor with him, which, hey, that's no shame in that. Tagir is an absolute monster. His next UFC, his next former UFC opponent, Chris Kalidas, who's, how old is Chris Kalidas? 43 years old. And it's like a competitive decision. Like, it's not like emphatic. His next UFC vet was Zach Makovsky, who's 40 years old. And like, dude, it's like a split decision. Like, I scored it for Asu Almabaev, but like, he's like taking down Zach Makovsky and getting swept and stuff like that. I was like, dude, maybe this guy has got a padded record. Maybe this guy ain't ready for the UFC yet. And then the way he ran through Ode Osborne, that Ode Osborne fight was more impressive than all of Asu Almabaev's regional fights combined. So maybe he's just like a big game player that rises to the occasion. Maybe Ode Osborne was just a good opponent for him. But let me tell you all something about CJ Vergara. The thing about CJ is he's a dog. He's not bad anywhere, but he's not particularly gifted anywhere either. He's just one of these guys that, you know, just short, stocky, durable, decently well-rounded. You gas out against him, he's going to put it on you, but there's nothing necessarily special about his game. So, I mean, I think that he's going to compete. I think he's going to fight tough, but I also think he's going to lose. I don't know if it's going to be a finish or not. Maybe a submission, maybe a decision, but ultimately, I think that Asu Almabaev is going to dictate the pace, and he's going to win on the scorecards or by submission. So I'll go Asu, and there will be a time to fade him. I just don't think it's Saturday night. So give me the Kazakh here. Last but not least, in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Joanne Calderwood. It's a rematch. She's 16-8, taking on Marina Moroz, who's 11-5. Currently, they got it. Marina Moroz minus 225. The comeback on Joanne Calderwood is plus 190. So the first time they fought, Joanne Calderwood closed like minus 600 or something, and she gets on top of Marina Moroz. Marina subs her off her back with an armbar. Great. Hey, good job. Since that point, both of them have had long, illustrious careers. They've done their thing. The thing about this fight, man, it's like Marina Moroz, we were talking about the air striking with Chookagian. She's another one that she's got the air striking style, the ha 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 ha, you know, but like the judges think she's doing something. One thing I like about Moroz, though, she's added to her game some good takedowns. Like, you watch that fight against Mayra Shitara Bueno Silva. Mayra Bueno Silva was chopping down Marina Moroz with calf kicks, and Marina was able to bail herself out with takedowns. With Joanne Calderwood, she's got really good volume on the feet, but she's another one that can be taken down, can be grinded out, and when you get around her neck, she's going to tap quick. So let's look at the stats and see how often Marina Moroz goes for takedowns, because that's what's going to be the reason you pick or don't pick her here. Because if she stands with JoJo, then this line's completely off. I'm not saying she can't win a stand-up fight. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying she stands with JoJo for 3 rounds. These judges plus 190, you know what I'm saying? So let's take a look at what the numbers say. So in her last 2 fights, Marina attempted 0 takedowns. Against Maria Agapova, she attempted 5. So that's what you need here. Like, in that Maria Agapova fight and in the Mayra Bueno Silva fight, she attempted 8 takedowns. She got 2 takedowns in both those fights. If she does that here, she will win this fight. Can you rely on her to do that? Because, you know, she's deep into the OnlyFans, and like, I got sent some of the content. It's like, oh man, she's that deep into the game, huh? You know, and the thing about it is, one's got the OnlyFans. She don't give a fuck about her UFC career. The other one has retired before and is literally retiring again in this fight. She don't give a fuck either. So I don't know. I really don't know. It's like pure pick. I see the argument for Moroz just because the takedowns. If you can get takedowns here, you're going to win this fight. But like I said, if she does not go for takedowns like she did not do her last 2 fights, and this is a stand-up fight, like, I'm not saying she's not going to win that, but I'm just saying that's where this is dog or pass. That's where this is split decision territory. And that's where Chris Lee, Adelaide Bird, and Saul D'Amato are going to royally fuck you. So yeah, I mean, I'll pick Morose, but pick and bet are two different things. So now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So my friends, what is the fight to watch for UFC 299? So besides the main event between O'Malley and Marlon Chito Vera, besides the co-main event between Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint Denise, I mean, I think the fight to watch is Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Petr Yan is a guy who at one point, a lot of people, myself included, were calling a top 5 pound for pound fighter. And then is it about to be a Renan Barão fall from grace? Or did he just have a couple setbacks to Aljo, former champion, Sugar, current champion, Marab, future champion, and now he's going to get back on track? And with Song Yadong, he's been in the UFC since he was like, what, 19 years old? I remember that stretch where he was like 23 years old for 10 years straight, but now he's a grown-ass man. And the way, guys don't want to bang with him for a reason, and Petr will bang with him, which is going to make it so exciting. So is Song ready to take that step up to title contention? Or, is Petr going to show that, hey, like, you're going to be there one day, just not Saturday night? So for that reason, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong is my fight to watch. My fighter to watch, I'm going to go MVP. This is his UFC debut. People are saying this guy's a fraud. People are saying, oh, but he lost to Mike Perry in bare knuckle boxing. And guys, Mike Perry is the bare knuckle boxing king. And last time I checked, you can't kick knee and elbow in bare knuckle boxing. So that's really irrelevant to me. But I mean, listen, this guy's coming into the UFC with a lot of hype. He's got a very tough opponent in Kevin Holland. And if he can come in here and knock out Kevin Holland, he's going to shoot up and get some big fights. So for that reason, MVP is my fighter to watch. Well, my friends, we did it. It's going down this Saturday night live in Miami, Florida. UFC 299. Cannot wait. Thank you again for all your support. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Leave me a comment. Share if you feel so inclined. And thank you again. Much love to you all. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.